Okay, so this isn't actually a week later. This is actually like 2 seconds later that I'm filming this video. But you're seeing it a week later. Anyway, so when I think of movies and films, obviously from a literal perspective, going Obama, literal perspective, they mean the same thing, right? A movie is a moving picture, a film is a film, which quite frankly isn't used as often anymore. My brother has this idea where we need to use actual film again. Maybe he'll make that happen. Shout out, Joe. Anyway, but I use this classification kind of as a follow-up to the last video. I used this also in part of the classification of how to write a film. By the way, I'm going to get into what I mean by this in a second, but it's important to note that there can be great and terrible movies, there can be great and terrible films. And with that in mind, let's get into my definition. So, I'm going to give examples because this is the way I usually do it. My examples would be Adam Sandler makes movies. The Coen brothers make films. Now that does not mean that Adam Sandler cannot make films or that the Coen brothers cannot make movies. And this also doesn't mean that the Coen brothers movies are going to be any better or worse than Coen brothers films, or that Adam Sandler's films are going to be any better or worse than Adam Sandler's movies. It's a little confusing, but what I mean by that is like Adam Sandler is kind of unfortunately lower on the totem pole for some people. I'm a fan, but like The Waterboy is a movie, and Punch Drunk Love is a film, whereas this is rough when it comes to giving an example of the Coen brothers because you tear people up inside, but like Fargo is a film, Raising Arizona is a movie. This is my my personal classification. If you don't agree, you don't agree, but that's just what I'm kind of trying to say. It has to do with production value, which is why it's kind of tricky, right? Because Adam Sandler does have plenty of production value in his work, but it's kind of the styling. Another way to look at it, I guess, it would be like films in my eyes are more artful, right? They're kind of, or they set out to prove a point, whereas movies are more like made for fun, right? So like the Fast and the Furious movies, some of them are fantastic, but they're not, they're kind of just, they're action films where, quite frankly, there's a lot of unrealistic stuff going on, or the superhero films that are so popular, which is, again, hard because I just use the word films, because some of them are, but it's like the difference between the first Captain America and Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a fun movie, it's a great movie, but I would not classify that as a film. I understand this is going to cause a huge, well, it could, it won't, but it could cause at least a little bit of explosion in the internet webs. But, again, this is all opinionated. This is just my kind of personal classification system. And so to bring it back to the last video, when I look at that, I say, okay, this is obviously a movie. And I can tell, I know this is people say you can't judge a book by its cover. I agree with that 100%. You can judge a film by its trailer. You can judge a movie by its trailer, pretty easily. Because people don't try as hard, or they try really hard. And you can be tricked. Definitely you can be tricked but usually you're being tricked into thinking something is high quality, not somebody's made a low quality trailer for a film that is high quality. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes it easier to tell whether you're going to sit down for a movie or a film. And I think that helps also with my expectations. Because if I go into a film thinking that it's going to be terrible, and then it turns out to be decent, I'm probably going to rate it a little bit higher than I usually would, just because it overrode my expectations. Whereas if I go into a movie it's a big budget Hollywood film thinking this is going to be great, this is going to be a 10 out of 10. I would never do that because it's a Hollywood film. No offense. But so if I go into a film thinking that, and then it's even remotely like boring or just slow, it probably will wind up with like a 1 from me. I mean, there's a review that I did on here of the 2017 adaptation of Stephen King's novel It, and it was a terrible film. And it was a film, but it wasn't a very good one at all. But anyway, that's my classification system. I'm almost to 6 minutes here, well, getting up on 6 minutes here. So I'm going to let you go, and again, hopefully by next week after this video is posted, I will have a couple of new kind of legitimate ones. So we'll get into that.